first quarter performance for MLP stocks was a little bit rough. I think it was very much in contrast to what most of us thought we would see coming into 2018, given the robust outlook for MLP cash flow fundamentals. Nonetheless, the stocks did trade down over the course of the first quarter. And really that came to a head on March 15th when the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission came out with a ruling that was negative for some interstate pipelines. Now the market took this as an overall negative for the entire sector. We actually have a different view than that. It's actually a very small subset of assets that are actually impacted by this FERC ruling. On our math, it's less than 5% of all the assets that are held in MLP entities are affected by this. And by our math, it really only should result in, at most, a 1% reduction in the overall cash flows of the MLPs as a sector. MLP balance sheets are actually in very good shape, particularly relative to where we were a couple years ago when these companies had to debt finance their growth projects because they didn't have access to the equity capital markets. You contrast that situation with where we are today, and these companies have ready access, obviously, to the debt capital markets, and these companies have also had access to the equity capital markets. And as a result of that, balance sheets are in better shape today than they certainly were 2 years ago. And the other important thing to note is that we're on the back end of what was a fairly high level of capital spending, 2015, 2016, 2017. And as capital spending is now declining, the need for capital in general is decreasing, yet cash flows are going up as these new projects come into service, which naturally is deleveraging as cash flows grow and these companies don't need to add more debt to their balance sheets. We're still very constructive about MLP stocks looking out over the balance of 18 and quite honestly into 2019. That hasn't played out year to date here in 2018. Nonetheless, our conviction and confidence that these companies are growing and ultimately that growth will be reflected in MLP stock prices. In fact, we're actually seeing MLP stocks today trading at lower multiples than we've ever seen, lower than during the financial crisis, lower than during the oil price collapse in 2015 and early 2016, yet you've got a situation where energy production is growing and will likely continue to grow. Cash flows are growing for this sector, and our every expectation today, and this was true 3 months ago, was that ultimately MLP stock prices will reflect cash flow trajectories. So effectively what you've seen here is cash flows have been moving higher, multiples have been moving lower, and you've had this disconnect widen out in the space. And we firmly believe that that disconnect will be bridged over time. Whether that's going to be bridged in a month, 3 months, or 12 months, I really can't accurately pinpoint an exact point when that disconnect begins to narrow. But again, so long as we're directionally right about the cash flows, we still have every expectation that ultimately we're going to be right about MLP stock appreciation over time.